Assalamualaikum. Hello guys, in this video we will share you about our academic listening projects that compiled by Annisa Saraswati number 80 and Fitri Azahra number 81 from class 3. Enjoy the video. Now we will talk about skills and strategies of TOEFL institutional testing program. Short dialogue, specific information and drawing conclusion. Skill 1. Focus on the last line. It is important to understand that the answer to this type of question is most often, but not always, found in the last line of the conversation. Strategy. Number 1. The last line of the dialogue probably contains the answer to the question. Number 2. Listen to the first line of the dialogue. If you understand it, that's good. But if you don't understand it, don't worry, because it probably does not contain the answer. Number 3. Be ready to focus on the last line of the dialogue because it probably contains the answer. Repeat the last line in your mind as you read through the answer in the text.
Skill 2. Choose answers with synonyms. Often, the correct answer in a short dialogue is an answer that contains synonyms, words with similar meanings but different sounds, for keywords in the conversation. Strategy. First, as you listen to the last line of the dialogue, focus on the keywords in that line. Second, if you see any synonyms for keywords in particular answer, then you have probably found the correct answer. Skill 3. Avoid similar sounds. Often, the incorrect answers in the short dialogues are answers that contain words with similar sounds but very different meanings from what you hear on the recording. You should definitely avoid these answers. Strategy. First, identify keywords in the last line of the dialogue. Second, identify words in the answers that contain similar sounds and do not choose these answers. Skill 4. Draw conclusions about who, what, where. In this type of question, the answer is not clearly stated. Instead, you must draw a conclusion based on clues given in the dialogue. One kind of conclusion that is common in this part of the test is to ask you to determine who the speaker is based on clues given in the dialogue. Strategy. Find keywords or clues based on the following questions. First, who is probably talking? Second, what will she or he probably do next? Third, where does the conversation probably take place? Skill 5. Listen for who and what in passive. It is sometimes difficult to understand who or what is doing the action in a passive sentence. This problem is often tested in the short dialogues. Strategy. Check carefully who or what is doing the action in these questions. Skill 6. Listen for who and what with multiple nouns. Where there is more than one noun in a sentence in the short dialogues, it is common for the answers to confuse which noun does what. Strategy. Underline the confusing nouns in each short dialogue. Then, read the question and choose the best answer to that question.
Short dialogue, understanding agreement and negative expression. Skill 7. Listen for negative expression. Negative expression are very common in the short dialogues, and the most common kind of correct response to a negative statement is a positive statement containing a word with an opposite meaning. Strategy. In this skill, usually, the question uses negative expression, so you are suggested to choose the opposite of the keyword. You should be particularly careful of negative expressions.
Skill 8. Listen for double negative expressions. It is possible for two negative ideas to appear in one sentence, and the result can be quite confusing. Strategy. You should remember that two negatives can make the sentence positive. Skill 9. Listen for almost negative expressions. Certain expressions in English have almost negative meanings. These expressions are common in the short dialogues. Strategy. The best answer is one that means that it is true, but it is almost not true.
Skill 10. Listen for negative with comparatives. Negatives can be used with comparative in the short dialogue of the TOEFL test. A sentence with a negative and a comparative has a superlative or very strong meaning. Strategy. The best answer is one that expresses a superlative or very strong idea. Skill 11. Listen to expression of agreement. Expression of agreement are common in the short dialogues, so you should become familiar with them. Strategy. Remember, the best answer is one that shows agreement. You should pay attention to expression of agreement.
Skill 12. Listen for expressions of uncertainty and suggestion. Expression of uncertainty and suggestion are common in the short dialogues, so you should become familiar with them. Strategy. Remember that the best answer is one that shows uncertainty or suggestion. You must be particularly careful of expression of uncertainty and suggestion. Skill 13. Listen for emphatic expression of surprise. Emphatic expression of surprise are common in the short dialogues, so you should become familiar with them. When surprise is expressed, it implies that the speaker did not expect something to be true. Strategy. Underline the expression of emphatic surprise in each short dialogue. Then read the question and choose the best answer to that question. Remember that the best answer is one that shows surprise.
Short dialogues. Understanding contrary meaning, phrasal verbs, and idioms. Skill 14. Listen for wishes. Conversation about wishes can appear in the short dialogues. The important idea to remember about wishes is that a wish implies that the opposite of the wish is true. Strategy. The best answer is one that implies opposite what is said. You should remember that a wish implies an opposite meaning.
Skill 15. Listen for untrue conditions. Conversations containing conditions can appear in the short dialogues. The important idea to remember about conditions is that a condition implies that the opposite of the condition is true. Strategy. Be particularly careful of untrue conditions and remember that the best answer is one that implies the opposite of what is said. Skill 16. Listen for 2 and 3 part verbs. 2 and 3 part verbs appear in some questions in the short dialogues. These verbs are expressions that include a verb and one or more particles, such as in, on, or at. The particle changes the meaning of the verb. Strategy. The best answer is one that is related to the meaning of the 2 or 3 part verb and might not seem to be related to the meaning of the verb without the particle. Skill 17. Listen for idioms. Idioms appear in some questions in the short dialogues. Idioms are special expressions in a language that all speakers of the language know. These special expressions describe one situation in life but are applied to many different areas of life. Strategy. The best answer is one that might not seem to be related to the idiom in the last line.
Long dialogues and talks. Identifying topics before listening. Skill 18. Anticipate the topics. It is very helpful to your overall comprehension if you know what topics to expect in the long conversation. You should therefore try to anticipate the topics you will be hearing. Strategy. Look briefly at the answer in the textbooks before you actually hear the conversation on the recording and try to determine the topics of the conversation that you will hear. You cannot always determine exactly what the topic is, but you can often get a general idea. Skill 19. Anticipate the question. It is very helpful to your ability to answer individual questions with long conversation if you can anticipate what the question will be and listen specifically for the answer to those questions. Strategy. Study the following answer and try to determine what the question will be. You should note that perhaps you will only be able to predict part of a question rather than the complete question.
Long dialogue and talks, understanding specific information while listening. Skill 20. Determine the topic. As you listen to each long conversation, you should be thinking about the topic, subject, or main idea for each conversation. Since the first one or two sentences generally give the topic, you should be asking yourself what the topic is while you are listening carefully to the first part of the conversation. Strategy. Listen to the first of each of the conversation and decide on the topic of conversation.
Skill 21. Draw conclusion about who, what, when, where. As you listen to each long conversation, you should be trying to set the situation on your mind. You should be thinking the following thought. Who is talking? When does the conversation probably take place? Where does the conversation probably take place? And what is the source of information for the conversation? Strategy. Listen to the first part of each of the conversation and try to imagine the situation. Then answer the question in the text. Skill 22. Listen for answers in order. The detailed questions are answered in order. It is possible to read along while you listen to the conversation on the recording. Strategy. There are two possible methods to use while you listen to a long conversation. You can just listen to the conversation and ignore the answer. Or you can follow along with the answer while you listen.
Long dialogues and talks, making inference and understanding implied meaning. Making inferences. Inference is a logical conclusion made from evidence and reasoning. How to make inference? First, identify background information. Second, trust the passage. Third, hunt for clues or supporting evidence. Fourth, narrow down the choices. Fifth, drawing conclusions. That's all skills and strategies from our group. Thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.